In today's lesson, we're going to be going over what measurement is. The next thing we're going to do is go through a list of 6 different important takeaways that we need to remember when we're learning how to measure something. After that, we're going to jump into practicing measuring all different types of objects using Legos. After doing all of that, hopefully you'll be ready to work on this a little bit on your own. You're going to have an exit ticket that is on Seesaw where you practice measuring different objects. All right, here we go. So a measurement is a number that tells us the size of an object. You might not know that you can use some items to measure another object. For example, today I'm going to be using a bunch of little Legos to be measuring different objects. Legos are good to use because they clip together like this and they're easy to keep right up against each other. So that's what I'm going to be using today for my example. You could also measure with paper clips, Unifix cubes, blocks. Anything that's all the same size can be used to measure something. There's a few different things that we need to keep in mind if we want to get a correct and accurate measurement. So I listed these things right here. These are the important takeaways from today that we're going to be working on when we practice measuring. The first thing that we need to remember is that the object that we're measuring needs to be touching the end. So I'll show you an example of what that looks like. This is an example of a correct measurement. See how this end of the paintbrush is touching the very end? So we know that we're getting an accurate measurement. Another thing that we need to remember when we're measuring is that there cannot be any gaps in our units. The units I'm using are Legos, like I said, so I can't have a space in between or a gap like this when I'm measuring. They need to be connected and pressed all the way together like this. This would be incorrect because there's a gap in the units right here. Another thing that's important to remember is that our units cannot be overlapping. So when I'm measuring something, I can't have these blocks be up on top of each other like this. This is called overlapping. We cannot have overlapping units. They need to be right up against each other like this. So this is what it looks like when there's an overlap in the units, which would be an incorrect way to measure. The fourth thing you need to know is that when you're measuring, the units have to be the same. So as you can see, all of these Legos are all the same size. They're all the same exact type of Lego. They're just different colors, but they're all the same size. When you're measuring, it wouldn't make sense to use some Legos and some markers and then some Legos because that would be an inaccurate measurement. Let me show you what that would look like. This would be incorrect because the individual Legos are a lot different size than this one marker. So that is something that you cannot do when you're measuring. You need to do all the same type of units or type of items to measure. And the fifth and final thing that we need to talk about is that you need to use the correct units when you're talking about your measurement that you found. So if I were to measure something using these Legos and it was 5 Legos long, it's important that I say it is 5 Legos long and not 5 paper clips long because paper clips and Legos have a different size, so the measurement could be different. For example, if I said something was 3 elephants long, that would look a lot different than something that's only 3 Legos long because elephants and Legos are completely different sizes. So it's important that you say the correct unit that you're using to measure. Now we're going to practice measuring a whole bunch of objects that I have here lined up for us. So as we measure, we're going to count how many Legos long it is. Count with me. 1, 2, 3, 4. So this rock is 4. Nice job. Now let's move on to the next one. The next thing we're going to measure is this bottle of hand sanitizer. So let's see. Is this a correct way to measure it? What do you think? If you said no, that's correct. This is an incorrect way to measure it because it's not touching the end of the units, so we wouldn't be getting an accurate measurement. We need to make sure that the item is all the way at the end of what we're measuring. Let's see how many Legos long this hand sanitizer is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. The hand sanitizer is 9 Legos long. Nice work so far. Now let's move on to measuring an Oreo. Would this be a good way to start measuring it? If not, what's wrong with it? Good work. Did you notice that there was a gap right here in the Legos? I noticed that too. So first we have to make sure that there's no gaps in our units. Is there anything else you're noticing that's wrong? That's right, it's not touching the end of our units. So let's move this Oreo down to make sure that it's touching the end. Nice. Now let's count and see how many Legos long this Oreo is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This Oreo is 5 Legos long. The next thing we're going to measure is this little fish. Would this be a correct way to measure it? If you said no, you're right. This is not a correct measurement because the units here are overlapping. So first we need to get them to be all lined up together, and we need to move this fish down so he's touching the end. Now let's count and see how long this fish is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. This fish is 11 Legos long. The next thing we're going to measure is a pair of glasses. Count with me to see how many Legos long it is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. The glasses are 15 Legos long. That was a great job practicing measuring. Nice. Before you move on to doing your own independent seesaw activity, I'm going to show you a little bit of what you can expect in that activity using the same objects that we were just using. When you go on to Seesaw after this video, you'll notice that you have an activity that looks really similar to what this looks like. So there'll be a drawing or an object here, and underneath will be a bunch of blocks. They're just blank. So your job will be to fill in the blocks to show how long each item is. So for example, this rock only goes 1, 2, 3 blocks. So we'll color in those 3 blocks and we'll leave the rest empty. So it will look something like this when you're doing the activity. Now let's move on to the hand sanitizer one. So when we're doing these, just like before when we were measuring, make sure that you're not starting coloring way in the middle of the blocks. Make sure that you're starting all the way on the end because that's how you're getting an accurate measurement. So for this one, we'll start coloring all the way over here and go and we'll stop coloring here because that's as long as the hand sanitizer. The next one over here is the Oreo, and we'll do the same thing. Start at the end and only color as far as that picture or item goes. Does that make sense? All right, so now that we've practiced with these 3, you should be able to do it on your own in the seesaw activity. Nice work, everyone. You did such a good job following along and measuring with me, and I hope you learned a lot. Now it's your turn to go ahead and go onto the activity on Seesaw where you will measure how long each object is. Can't wait to watch and see all of your Seesaw activities for this measuring. Bye, thanks for watching.